Right, good evening and welcome back again. Paul did an absolute run around there and got back to the front seat in front of everybody else. So well done there, Paul. And Neil is keeping the seat warm at side of you. So well done on that one. Peter's back. Numbers are building up again. I'm not sure that there is a lot of room in the on the front row, Peter. I think it sort of goes from one seat to 3 seats to 5 seats to 7 seats, etc. So you've got to be in the house early to get on that front seat. So hope you're all enjoying it up to present. I certainly am at this end, so everything's flowing quite nicely, and I think Ray's doing a very admirable job. I must admit, it certainly when you first start doing your first talk or something, it is the strangest thing, sat in a room on your own, talking to yourself, knowing that you've got to keep it flowing and to not have anybody there that's just smiling, laughing, clapping at the appropriate moment. So it's certainly not an easy task. We'll just give people another few minutes to get back. I said 20 past, so we've got another 3 minutes on here from what my clock's saying. So who we got back? We've got Paul, Neil, Peter, Jill and Jim. So I'm sure, well, I know there is more because we've got 11 showing, so people are getting their glasses topped up. Bob will of course be filling his glass again, so I must admit I've just been and got a drink as well. So and I know certainly Ray's just said that he's popped off and he got himself a drink this time, so he'll be able to keep his whistle wet during this next half. So who else have we got? Graham H is back, so as I say, we'll still give it a few moments. Sue's back, so yeah. No, I did just say a few minutes ago that before everybody came back that I'm certainly enjoying it from the Dunholm end, so I'm sure you all are as well. Bob's not back with a glass of brown, is back with coffee and cake. Blooming heck, Bob. That's pushing it. What sort of a cake is it? Is it something that I'd like? As long as it's not coffee cake. I don't like coffee cake. Don't mind a bit of vanilla, but certainly not coffee. Or I'm not too keen of any cake with fruit in it, or, well, I don't mind a bit of banana cake, but other than that, just a good bit of plain vanilla cake will do me. So don't forget, if you're enjoying yourselves this evening, which I'm sure you all are because you come back, then don't forget to click the like button and make sure that you share the thumbs up with us. So right, we're still down a few to earlier on, and I did say to be back for 20 past, so I will just give people another couple of minutes just to get back in the house and get there to the seat. Just as a bit of an update for you all at the I just see what you put, Paul. Yeah, I'm very picky. The ladies and people that have been up to Scotland with me will tell you that I eat absolutely anything when I'm away, and that's anything that I like. So no, just as a bit of an update for everybody at the old school, got all of the heating in now. The old red lights have been taken down. I say lights, they're heaters, aren't they? But they do light the room up and give us some terrible colour casts on the images. So it will save us getting that red glow on the screen when we next do our meetings and competitions. So just to let you know, Ray, we're getting a few nice comments from people, really interesting first half, etc., from people. So it's going down well. Michael Huston, Mark, all welcome back. Right, I'm going to hand over to Ray for the second half. So I'll hand over to Ray, and then once we've finished, I'll have a look at the comments and pass on your comments to Ray. So over to you, Ray. Thanks.
Right, lovely. Thank you very much, Graham. One thing, Graham is right. It is a bit bizarre sitting here on your own, just talking to a computer screen, because you get no interaction with your audience or anything, because all I see is the photos like you're seeing. So it is a little bit bizarre, and it gets a bit used to. And I think so. I'm all the more appreciative of what Graham does most weeks when he does this on a regular basis.
Anyway, just to let you know before you start there, Ray, you are always 20 seconds in front of the audience seeing the image that you're talking about as well, by the way.
Oh, okay. Well, I now know that then. So they'll have to guide my words to when the picture comes up. It's obviously very awkward. Right. Well, back to Myanmar. This is now the 7th of April. And we had a bit of a line today, Jim. We only had to get up at 6:30 today. And that was, again, to get another flight. As I said, we took, I think it's 3 internal flights. And this is must be 4 internal flights. And this was the plane that we got. And it flew us to Kalor, which is a former British hill station. And it was a lot cooler here. And one of the main reasons was that it was 1,320 metres above sea level. So it was a lot cooler. After the flight, we had a long drive to get to our hotel and that. So we actually didn't do too much on that day. So this was obviously when we were loaded, and we were making our way to our next hotel. 8th of April, Jim won't be surprised to hear that we also got up early on this day. Again, it would have been pre-7 a.m. But the reason is we actually were going out walking for the day. We had 5 to 6 hours walking in the Pine Hillside, visiting local villages. And I will say about this is one thing that Exodus does, and it takes you off the beaten track. This lady, I thought she didn't mind me taking her photo, but I'm not sure whether the second photo that comes up, you know what I mean, whether she was too pleased that I took her photo. Anyway, when we do these sort of walks with Exodus, we go through all the local villages. And when we're there, we actually stop most times for lunch in a villager's house. So I actually did ask, how does this work? And they said, well, when we research the trips, we go to the local village and we speak to the elders or the head of the village and say, do you mind if we bring a load of tourists through? And they normally say no. And they said, well, what we'll do is that we'll buy a meal off you. If one of your villagers can cook a meal, we'll pay the going rate that we would pay in a restaurant, but your villager can keep all the money. So, of course, if you're buying in bulk and you're making a meal and then you're charging restaurant prices, which I think for us, if I remember correctly, was only about a £5 that we got charged, that particular villager will make a lot of money. So I said, well, how does that work? One villager getting a lot of money. And the guide said, well, what we do is we change houses that we go to every few weeks. So they all take it in turns, and all take it in turns to earn what for them would be a lot of money. So I do like that idea that that they do that sort of thing, because the money then goes direct to the people and not to some large organisation or to some large restaurant owner. But these were the photos that I took during the walk. It was really quite pleasant countryside. It was warm, but nowhere near as warm as it was down when we were lower down. The thing with these villages is, of course, they all do crafts. Now, my wife loves crafts. Oh, this little chap was coming up was quite cheeky. You'll see the picture of him. My wife loves crafts, and she quite often talks to these women that she meets about the craft, but neither of them can speak the other language. But they obviously have a special language called crafting, and they understand what they're talking about. But this was the particular villager that was making our lunch. And I have to say, some of the lunches that we've had in various countries that I've been with Exodus, have been absolutely fabulous. And again, it brings a lot of money into the village. Well, here's a lady that's obviously crafting, and I know my wife spoke to her at great length, and neither could speak the language. But and again, these aren't tourist villages; they are just villages that we as tourists just happen to go through. And what we do is someone always takes something for the kids, and the girl doing the V sign has got a sweet in her hand, and the other youngsters have all got pipes and that have been given by us. And quite often we take pens and papers, which of course they all appreciate, and the kids love it. I don't know whether parents love it so much when we give them whistles. I did take one of a lizard while we were out and about, but we didn't see that much wildlife at all. So there's not many photos of animals. But again, made by the villagers, we bought these 2 shawls, and the shawls are about 6 feet long, all handmade. We saw them being made in the people's homes, and she wanted £5 each for them. When you consider the amount of work gone into them, it's quite incredible. I think at the time, I actually gave them £7 because that was all the change I had left before I could get my cash back. But as I say, just the work, and we still use them now. My wife puts them on sometimes if she goes out and it's cold, or she wears them in front of the telly when Coronation Street's on. The next day, which is now the 9th, we got up at 6:30 a.m. We left our hotel and we had a drive to a restaurant for lunch. It wasn't purely to go to the restaurant, it was to make our way back down from where we were. And the picture of the restaurant actually reminds me of nowadays, because it was a big restaurant. All the tables are quite well separated. It reminds me of socially distancing, which seemed a bit strange. But when I saw it, I thought, yeah, it does. Pictures I've seen of restaurants today. Anyway, we stopped at this place, which is caverns and meditation chambers carved into the rock. And within them, there's over 8,000 Buddha images within these limestone caverns. And the number gets added to daily because people bring them along to put into the chambers here. As you see, some of them are quite huge statues and some are small and no bigger than a couple of inches tall. But again, it's mainly a place of worship. So again, you can't wear your socks and shoes. And again, you're always going to get people praying within there. So you always have to be mindful of that. But certainly none that I saw minded me taking photos. So it's always a bonus. Of course, it's always quite challenging. I wouldn't take pictures of flash within a place like that. So they are what they get. And again, some of the ladies you can see have the suntan lotion on their cheeks. The why they get added to, the Buddhas get added to daily, I'm only assuming it's because it's their particular vision of the Buddha that they want to place in the temple. So bearing in mind we went there in 2013 when there was 8,000 Buddhas. I'm sure that number's probably gone up to 9 or even 10,000 by now. But as you can see, we're still quite up high, but we are gradually coming down from the height. And these are just a few images that I took there. We also visited a paper and umbrella factory. And of course, everything is made by hand. And I remember my wife did buy some paper. I can't remember what she did with the paper, or I don't think she used it as writing paper, but certainly I remember the paper being around for a while and she did use it. Which is of course all handmade and impregnated with flowers, and of course the umbrellas are all handmade. They are paper umbrellas, so they're for decoration, and we did buy a couple of umbrellas that we had in our bedroom for a few years, I seem to recall. I don't know whatever happened with them, but we did buy them. I can't remember how much they were, but they would have only been a few pounds each, which when you consider the amount of work that goes into them, as can be seen with the intricate workings within inside the umbrella. And all the decoration on the outside is hand painted. So there's a lot of work goes into them. But we also walked out and we saw this giant banyan tree, and it was absolutely huge, and I just caught a glimpse of a young lad up in it. And a little bit further along we saw a young lad fishing, and he was only too proud to show us his catch, which indeed he was taking back to his family that had a barbecue going. So I'm assuming the fish were going to go on the barbecue at the end of the day. Anyway, we were a bit early finishing this day, so our guide said, come on, we'll stop off at the monastery and see what's happening. And we're so glad that we did, because all the trainee monks were cleaning the wooden floors, and they were cleaning them using fairly untraditional methods. So they were polishing the floors by dragging each other around and polishing them that way, and they seem to be having great fun. I used a slower shutter speed here, trying to capture the movement. I'll let you decide whether I actually caught the movement or not, or whether they just look like blurry photos. But as I say, we've all learned something since. And but the one thing I do take back from this was the monks thoroughly were enjoying this, and of course we were enjoying watching them, but ultimately they actually got told off for messing about doing it this way, and they eventually had to pack up and go. And this was the last photo of them leaving the hall after they got told off. Not severely, I hasten to add. Anyway, this takes us to the following day, the 10th of April, and again we were up at 6 a.m. And the reason that we were up early this day, and I think it was we got up and had breakfast after this, was there was a parade of the monks, and they do this every day. They come out and basically they beg for their food. So they go round with their giant begging bowls around the town and collect their food for the day. It has to be said, most people that gave them food seemed to be restaurants, hotels and shops. Indeed, the guy that you will see shortly giving them food was from our hotel, and that's how they get their food, because they They don't have it themselves. They might well grow vegetables, but most of it they get, certainly the rice as well, they got from this. Some look more impressed with what they've been given than others, it has to be said. Anyway, the main object, or the main task, that's the wrong word, our main adventure that we were doing on this day was going out onto the Inlay Lake. Now, this lake is famous for its leg rowing fishermen. So, obviously, we had to get our boats, and I took a few pictures of the boats before. Because we're tourists and because Exodus is a good company, we are given our life jackets. Anyway, these are not staged photographs. This guy was just fishing on the lake. We came along and he was just carried on doing what he was doing. He did obviously notice me fishing, taking the photographs, but this net, what they do is they put the net in because it's very shallow, the lake, and they spear the fish through the top of the conical shaped net. But there were others doing this all over the lake where there were no tourists, so I'm saying it wasn't a show put on for tourists. But as we made our way across the lake, we visited various places and stop-offs on outlets. The only disappointment about this day is they do have a floating market, and we did want to visit the floating market, but for some reason it wasn't actually on that day. So we missed out on that, and that might have been a very nice photo opportunity. But of course, along the river, you're seeing all sorts of life going on anyway. And people going about their daily tasks and their daily chores. The guy riding the bicycle along has, of course, got one of those bags that I was telling you about that was made from the tyres, the plastic tyres that go around to keep things safe. Anyway, we looked at all the various aspects of life along the river, with people doing their washing, doing their ablutions, things like that. They mainly seemed totally oblivious to us. Some kids used to always wave back as normal, but when you're seeing pictures of people in their home environment, I think you've got to be a bit more careful about when or how or if you take any photos. But anyway, another place we visited out on the river here was a place called Indian, which is a pagoda complex of Shan-style stupas. Now, that were in a complete state of disrepair, but they've started reclaiming them after years of neglect. And it says that the place has a sort of an Indiana Jones feel, and they're quite right with this. It was very sort of eerie and surreal, because a lot of these places were literally falling into the ground, but they've been starting to repair them and taking them back to their former glory. As usual, we pass through various markets of sort of goods that a lot of locals were buying. The girl with the baby here, she was actually begging to a certain degree, and we all have our own views about whether we should give any money to beggars, but she did actually have a little croaking frog, wooden frog for sale. So I actually bought that off her, and that was the money she was holding. And so she was quite pleased with that. And I've still got the frog. I have a room that I call the Indian room, which has a load of artifacts. And it's still in there, this little croaking frog. Anyway, it's as I've said before, that you're meant to wear decent clothes when visiting religious sites. We saw this poster up when we were out and about, and it really says that you shouldn't wear this type of thing. And they don't like your shorts to be too short, preferably knee length or maybe a little bit longer. But unfortunately, sometimes when you're hot, the shorts ride up a little bit. So in fact, I bought one of those skirt type things, and this is me wearing it. The bulge under my jacket is actually a knot in the thing, and so most of the times I wore this because it was easier doing that than worrying about whether your shorts were too short. On the lake, we actually went to a restaurant which was built up on stilts, so we had our meal there, which was again a rather nice meal, and we watched the world go by from the restaurant there. And again, I took the picture of our colourful boats with our jackets, our floating jacket. Well, I've forgotten the name of them now.
Lifeguards.
Life jacket. That's
Life
it.
jacket.
Well done, Graham. Of our life jackets, there's a colourful photo, and of course, some of the boats go a bit faster than others. We were also taken to this other factory that was making some form of material wear, but there was actually nothing for sale here. So it was really just to show us about how they made things and the like. And that was quite interesting, but there was nothing for sale. And then after that, we went to a cheroot factory, and we did, a few of us, and I don't smoke, but a few of us did purchase cheroots off them for a reasonable price, all handmade on the ladies' laps, as they say. But we finished on the lake and made our way back to the hotel. So this then took us to the next day. I actually got up early this following day as well, only to watch the parade of the monks again to get a few more photos, but I haven't actually put those on there. So I think I got up about 6:15 again, just to watch the parade of monks. But the main reason, or the main thing we were doing this day, was going out for a cycle ride. And I think we probably did about, I'm guessing about 8 miles, something like that, 10 miles maybe on the bikes. And again, it's to go to the back and beyond and see villages that just don't see tourists, don't see white people. And we, again, always tend to be the tourist attraction rather than them. They all come out to see us, which again is always a little bit bizarre. But a lot of the houses were built on stilts because obviously some of them are on floodplains, but some of them, of course, is where they keep the animals underneath. So, but what we mainly saw in here was the villagers making tofu, and they were making them out of yellow chickpeas and not soya. Now, these kids were interesting. We gave them the normal sweets and gifts. And the little girl in the background that you can see there in the partial orange top, when I was taking pictures of her friends and showing them to them, she thought it was hilarious. She really did. That's this little girl in the orange with the best something written on her T-shirt. And she thought it was hilarious, the pictures I took of her. Anyway, when I took a picture of that little girl and showed her the photo, there was no reaction at all. So I couldn't understand this. So I said to the guide, why is there no reaction? Why did she laugh when I showed her friends? And he said, well, she's never seen a picture of herself. She'd never seen a reflection. She's never seen herself. So when I showed her photo, she didn't know it was her. Which, and if you take my 4-year-old grandchild, she's always posing for the camera. But of course, this girl had never even seen her reflection in a mirror, so she didn't know what she looked like. So that's why she didn't react to when I took a photo of her. But it was an interesting trip around the villages, and again, people used to come out and see us and wave. They didn't take photos of us because obviously these are poorer people, but some of them even come out and wanted to pose for the cameras, and it wasn't always just the kids that did it. But again, the day came to an end, and we finished cycling and cycled back to our hotel and watched the sun go down as usual. We're nearly at the end now, and on the 12th, again, we got up early because it was our final flight, our final internal flight, should I say, and this took us back to Yangon or Rangoon. And on the way to our hotel, because we did spend one more night at a hotel, we stopped at this compound, which was where Aung San Suu Kyi was held captive for quite a few of the years that she was held as a political prisoner. And various of our groups took selfies and photos in front of the compound because, again, it was a part of sort of modern history. So we had a final look and tour around the city of Rangoon before we finally made our way back to our hotel, and then ultimately we made our way to the airport. This is the local airport, which was fabulously decked out, as you can see, not at all busy. And although I might have taken pictures of them, but I haven't included in this, there was a nice little band playing local music, not pipe music, live music. So this is the final shot that I have for you of us about to board our flight back to Kuala Lumpur to come home to dear old Blighty. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the talk that I've given you, and that you've enjoyed some of the photos. Some could do with some improvement, I know, but hey, this was 7 years ago, and I think I've learned a bit since then. And I hope you've enjoyed yourself, and I haven't put too many of you to sleep. So,
no.
Joining me, and I'll hand it back to you, Graham.
Thank you very much. Yes, I must admit, sitting here, it's been very enjoyable, Ray. I must admit that there's one comment come up that I haven't mentioned to you. It's one that I put in, and it was when you purchased your garment to stop your legs being shown. I did put on here that he looks like a babe, doesn't he? So yeah, we're getting some comments on. If you unshare your screen now, Ray, whilst I'm just telling you these comments, stop presenting, that's it, and you'll come back on there. They can see you now, so you can wave to everybody. Right, Bob saying very interesting and informative. A good evening, many thanks, Ray. Graham Halliday, very interesting and educational, Ray. Thanks for your hard work. Lovely evening. Thanks, Ray, from Doreen. Sue, thank you, Ray. Very interesting. Caroline Oldham's put, lovely trip, Ray. Thank you so much. Well, Caroline, I hope you've picked up a few tips there. I'm sure you have, because I will admit that I do think that Ray's done extremely well this evening. He's not had many blips or anything like that, so that was very good. Jill's thanking you very much as well. Looks like an interesting trip. Tony's great evening. Divas, thank you, Ray. Interesting to see the people. Jim's, thanks very much, Ray. Very informative and good to see a place I am unlikely to visit. Divas put.
If you've got to get up that early, Jim.
Yeah. I didn't click why you'd actually put that, but now I do. Now you've said that. Peter Curry's, thank you, Ray. Very enjoyable. Mark Richardson, great evening. Viv, very interesting, Ray. Thank you. Caroline Steele, thank you, Ray. Paul Walker, great job. Nice to see another Mac user. Neil Pottinger, thank you, Ray. Wonderful place. Caroline Oldham. No, I'll not read you that one out. Caroline's just getting a little concerned about next week. Let's put it that way. Doreen, no pressure. No, that's all right. Mark Richardson, the photo of the man posing is that of a World War II German helmet in the background. So I'll read that again. The photo of the man posing is that of World War II German helmet in the background. So,
well, I'm going to have to revisit that photo and have a look for myself because I have no idea.
Michael Hudson, wonderful pagodas, and that's got you to the end. So thank you very much, Ray. Very much appreciated. You've done a wonderful job, and thank you to everybody else for sticking with us. You actually gained another viewer in the second half to the first half, Ray. So just as a bit of information for you all, if anybody else would fancy doing a talk with their pictures, I'm not sure, how many did you have, Ray? A couple of hundred?
No, you'll be surprised to hear, because I put them on, there was 422 photos.
Right, fair enough. I think...
But I did it so that they changed about every 9.5 seconds, which took it up to 70 minutes.
Ah, right, yeah,
So-
yeah. So if somebody did a little bit more talking on each picture, then they could, get away with a few less pictures. But if anybody fancies having a go, get in touch with us. But for you all this evening, thank you very much for watching. And both from Ray and myself, thank you very much indeed. And we'll catch you on the next one. Goodbye.